generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet. Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we are talking about one of the latest new movies that has come out, and that is Speak No Evil. Um, I was very excited for this film. Sarah was too, and so what we're gonna do is we are going to talk about some of our thoughts about the movie with non-spoilers, give the movie a rating, and then eventually talk about what happened in the movie. So, like I said, we were both very, very excited to see this movie. And well, I should back that up a little bit. We were also recently, we saw the new Beetlejuice movie. We were very excited about that movie too. When we saw that movie and we were excited, we were a little let down. When we saw this movie and we were excited for it, it hit on all cylinders for me. This movie was great. I would say it could be a contender for one of my best movies of the year. Um, I don't want to talk it up too much because I don't want you to go to theaters and be like, that was the worst movie ever. But it kept you engaged. Like you know enough from the preview to know they're gonna meet this family, things are gonna go wrong. What's gonna happen here? Like how can they fill a full movie's length of this stuff? And the movie does have a bit of a slow burn at first, but I feel like it's very effective. Because I mean, us as the audience from the preview, we know that this other family has something going on with it. I mean, the dad's a little quirky, and the son doesn't speak well, and we see in the previews, him doing this thing. Like, we knew something's up, but we got to kind of know how do we get there, right? And I thought a lot of the character development was effective. It started off very small. We got breadcrumbs along the way. And I think what also was an effective thing was in the previews, we see this scene about the daughter and the son doing this little dance routine, and then eventually the dad gets mad and he throws food at his son. Like we know that's gonna happen, but that's kind of like the final straw of like the majority of the leading up to the tipping, I would say, of the family deciding to take action. So there's a lot of other things too that we get to, experience and go through with this family as well. I think that's what kind of made the movie very effective. It wasn't just what you saw in the previews was what the movie was. There was a lot more to it. And so um, I
But
thought
at
it
the
was
same
great.
time, I just want to point out, I feel like the previews did a good job of accurately describing what the movie was going to be like. I feel like it set the tone and it wasn't misleading because a lot of previews these days are super misleading about how the movie's going to go. And I feel like the previews were pretty spot on without giving too much away.
Yeah, and the previews, like kind of like what you were saying, they made you wonder what is going on here. Like, why is the kid not speaking well? Why is the kid doing this? For when I saw the preview, I thought maybe there's something like paranormal going on here or something. And it's gonna be one of these weird movies like that. But no, there is nothing paranormal about this movie. So like it is legitimately something that could happen, in the real world. You don't have to be like, do you believe in ghosts or not? So um yeah, great, great movie. Like I said, I think it's gonna be a contender for my top movie of the year. What do you think?
Yeah, just to kind of add on to that a little bit. So this movie has a runtime of an hour and 50 minutes, which is pretty long for a horror movie.
I did
Uh,
not feel that, that's for sure. I seriously, I thought this might have been like an hour and a half at the most. That's because it was go go. Well, it's not go 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 as far as like we're zipping through scenes. It's like you're invested. You do not realize that time is going by, right?
Yeah, I feel like they did a really good job of making the characters believable. You felt for them. You you almost kind of felt like you were in the same mindset as the mom for a good chunk of this. You know, like things are kind of going crazy and she's kind of piecing things together, but you're like right there with her piecing things together. There's a lot of little one-liners that are said just in passing by that if you're paying attention, you can pick up on them and it's just like, wait, what did they say? And I don't want to give any examples in the non-spoiler section. So I'll say I'll save one example for later, but my point is that there's a high level of detail in this movie. I don't feel like the dialogue's wasted. I feel like they did a good job of really just keeping you invested. I felt tense during a lot of this film. And that's something that like a horror movie should do. You should feel scared. You should feel tense. You should feel like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? My heart's pounding. And I feel like this movie did a really good job of combining all of those elements into making just a really good, well-rounded thriller.
I would agree. 100%. I will say the actor James McAvoy, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Of course, he's on the movie poster. He's the one that grabs a lot of attention from the trailer. He did do a phenomenal job, but I do think all the other people did a great job as well. The I looked up on IMDb and there's 8 people on the cast list. um, Main actors and actresses. I should say that. Because there are some, like, there's some people I can think of right away right now that aren't on this list, but that's because they have maybe 30 seconds of screen time. They're not super significant, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, great job all around from everybody. I highly recommend if you like these types of movies, I highly recommend it for sure. Um, if you don't want to see it in theaters and you'd rather wait for streaming, that's totally fine too. But it's a good one. It's one you're gonna want to see. Um, if you have any remote interest in it. Um, I don't really know if there's much more that I really need to say as far as non-spoilers.
I feel like they did a good job with the cinematography. Everything looked really beautiful. There was a lot of scenic landscaping type shots and, uh, lots of indoor shots too, of course, but just I feel like everything looked really nice too. Like they took the time to make a quality film.
I would agree. So let's roll into the ratings. What would you give this movie?
I don't know that there's really anything that I would change. I haven't felt this great about a movie in a while. The last one that I have that's gotten this rating was Deadpool and Wolverine, which is a completely different style film. But it's been a while since we've seen a really good horror thriller, and this one's getting a 10 out of 10 for me. There's just nothing that I would change to make it better. I felt like they did a great job with everything that they worked with.
I think this is the fourth film that I have said this to, and I would agree. I think this movie is a 10 out of 10. This is definitely one where, I mean, a second time through probably won't be as exciting because you know everything about it, right? But just being in that moment and watching this film as it unfolds, they did a phenomenal job. Can't stress that enough. So a pair of 10 out of 10s. This movie is great. Go out and see it. But if you need to wait until streaming, absolutely. As soon as it drops, check it out. Um, we do want to talk about some spoilers because, like I said, this was an exciting movie. So we will transition to those here. Uh, so let's get some of the names covered. That way we can start talking about them by their names. The James McAvoy character, his name is Patty. The his wife in the movie is Sierra, and then their son that is pretty mute. His name is Ant. And let's see, our family that visits them, The father's name is Ben, the mom is Louise, and the daughter is Agnes. And then we get a couple of other characters later on too, that are fairly significant. But this movie, we have our family. They're from, they live in London, but they are visiting Italy, right?
Yes.
Trying to get just making sure I have the countries right. Um,
Yeah, so the family's from the US. They moved to London for a job opportunity for the dad that didn't pan out, but they stayed in London so they could try to find their way in the world. But they're
right.
vacationing in Italy, and then that's where they find this other family.
Yeah, and I think they run into each other on the streets. Like it's a big, I would say, touristy area at where they're at, and they bump into this couple with their son, and the daughter seems a little bit interested in Patty's motorcycle. Would like to have a little ride on it, and it's kind of like oh, we'll just take her around the block, just let her have some fun, and they do, and it's kind of like how they start to bond a little bit. Eventually, Patty mentions going to like out to eat. I think were they both on their way to the first dinner? Because they went to like a big group dinner, and there was another couple there that they weren't too fond of, like they talked too much, kind of a thing. And then they went to go do their own thing. I think they went to dinner maybe the next day on their own, the two families. Um, and then this is where Patty starts to talk about how, he has a house, or him and his family have a house kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but it's beautiful. And, if Ben and his family are wanting to, they can come and hang out for a week, just to have a little more extended vacation. And eventually, Ben and Louise, they agree to do that. That other couple does show up, and it's funny because there's a interesting character development scene here for Patty, because Patty's basically like, "Watch this. I'll get rid of him right away." Because he motions to the couple and is like, "You want to come sit with us?" And he's like talking about how he wants them to settle a debate on what's the proper way to use toilet paper. Is it folded or scrunched? And then he was like going into this detail about how you could poke a hole through it and how it's nasty. And it basically made that other couple want nothing to do with them. And they're like, oh, it's okay. We were just making reservations to come back another day. So we get our first little piece of character development for Patty, because we know there's something going on with this dude from the preview, but yet we have this kind of like funny jokester version of him at first. So,
It's like giving a layer of charm to them.
right, because there's usually a layer of charm to these people that are a little unhinged and have these ways about them for sure. So Ben and his family, they agree. They go over to Patty's place. They arrive late at night. It's a very, very big house. And the area that they live, they have a lot of land. Um,
It's funny how you say it's a big house because it's, I think, only 3 bedrooms. And so the kids have to share a bedroom, and the daughter has to sleep on the floor because they don't have enough beds.
Maybe it's more deceiving because there's a lot of like barn buildings
Yeah.
and they're really close to one another.
The homestead is large. The house wasn't so much. Sorry, it's not a big deal. I was noting because uh it was really weird that the girl was like sleeping on the almost like in a sleeping bag on the floor. Weird because of what happens later.
Yeah. So there's a I'm trying to remember that. So they first get there, they're hanging out. Um, I'm trying to remember what happens in the correct order, but eventually it gets to the point where the mom wakes up in the middle of the night and she goes to check on her daughter, and her daughter is not in her bed. And she's like, what the heck? Where's the daughter? And when she goes searching for the daughter, she finds her daughter in Patty and Sierra's bed with them. And so this kind of drives them to be like, okay, we're out of here. Like, what the heck is going on here? Um,
Well, because like he was sleeping in his underwear and stuff,
yeah,
which, just sleeping with your wife, okay, but sleeping with some other couple's like 10-year-old kid or 12-year-old kid, that's weird. That's not okay. That's not normal.
right. And so they go to, and this is where I'm not too sure. Is the dinner before or after that? When
I
they go to
think
the private dinner.
I think it was before, but either way,
So if it was before, I mean, this is kind of another little character development thing too. Um, so Patty and Sierra decide to have essentially it's a private dinner, and Ben and Luis and Agnes are dressed up to go to dinner, and they don't realize that this is an adults only thing. So Agnes stays back with Aunt, and they have a babysitter come over. They're like, "Don't worry, he's a or I don't think he's a refugee. He's an immigrant. He used to be a teacher. They trust him. They really like him because he's cheap, but he does great with kids. And so they're like, okay, no problem. And
nothing
so,
funny ever happens with him.
right. Uh, so the adults go off to dinner, and uh, they have some interactions with Patty and Sierra where they talk a lot about their sexual tendencies, and we went to the drive-in, so we were able to kind of talk about things in the car as things were unfolding, and we were all kind of like, are they swingers? Like, is that what's going on here? Like, is this a restaurant? Because it seemed like they knew um the the cook, and it seemed like after they had their dinner, he turned on some music, and it seemed way too coincidental that a lot of these things were happening. Again, it seemed like it was a situation where Patty and Sierra were kind of setting the mood for this swinger interaction with Ben and Luis. um, so yeah, they have kind of a uncomfortable dinner because Patty and Sierra are pushing more of this like sexual talk, and they even to a point where they're talking about their they spice it up because they do it every day when they do it with role playing, and they do this thing at the dinner table where Sierra goes below the table, and it looks like something's going on here, but they play it off as a joke, just trying to make Ben and Luis uncomfortable. And so we have that going on where we get some character development there between Patty and Sierra.
Well, what's weird about this dinner thing too is that Patty had invited them. So it seemed like they were going to pay for it, pay for both couples. And then Ben and Louise were like, "Oh no, you don't have to do that." Like basically insinuating that they'd split the check. And Patty says, "Oh, well, thanks for covering that." And they leave the restaurant so that Ben and Louise have to pay the full tab. And it's not cheap.
Right, because it was a personal chef, basically. Um, Another thing that happened at this dinner that plays off of something earlier, it is established that Luis is a vegetarian or pescatarian. Do you remember which one?
Um, she calls herself a vegetarian. She does eat fish.
So when they first get to the house, um, Patty makes, was it a goose?
Duck.
Duck? He fries up a duck, and he goes to give her a piece of it and basically taunts her to eat a piece. She
And
gives
this
in.
that part's in the trailer too.
Oh, she gives in, but then she spits it out. And so, what's interesting about the dinner later on is that um, he kind of pushes her button on it a little bit. Kind of like, if you're, I've heard the discussion before, like, well, fish have meat, so why are you eating fish? Because, like, she has this, uh, she says she's a vegetarian, but she'll eat fish. And so he kind of like pushes the buttons on that a little bit. Like, are you really a full-on vegetarian, or are you cutting corners kind of a thing? So we can kind of tell that he has some sort of irritation with some of the things that they believe in. Um, we do get a little later on, we get a scene with Ben and Luis where we see that there's some tension between the two of them, because Ben finds a adult picture, needless to say, on Luis's phone of another guy, and so there's kind of this tension between them where Luis is, kind of cheating on him. So we have that throughout the movie too. Uh, so let's go back to they decide to leave because they find the daughter in their bed with them. They take off, and the daughter goes, "I left my stuffed animal back at the house." So it's the kid's fault that we now have to go back to the house, right? They could have left. It would have been fine. Um, I picked up that they're driving a Tesla, and that comes up later on too. So not only are they vegetarian, but they're trying to be environment friendly with their electric car. So they drive back to the house, and Patty and Sierra are disappointed because, the family never said goodbye. They just tried to leave without saying goodbye. And essentially, Sierra tries to cover up what happened by saying, "Oh, we were supposed to have a daughter, and we lost our child, and I was just trying to be motherly because it seemed like, Agnes was uncomfortable with sleeping on the floor, was it?" And so Ben and Luis kind of, they have to they feel sorry because they want to believe what's being told to them. And so they kind of try to backtrack and feel like, okay, it's okay. We're here. It's unsettling, but
Well,
these
and
people.
Patty uses some of that charm again of he goes, "Remember that time you guys left without telling us because you were uncomfortable?" Like even though it had just happened, he was saying it as if it was happened a long time ago, like, but then you came back.
Yeah. Let's see. So we do get a scene where more character development. So Patty and Ben go off together, and Louise, Sierra, Agnes, and Aunt, they are doing their own thing. And Patty and Ben, they go out hunting, and Ben just can't pull the trigger. There's a fox or something out in the field, and Patty tells Ben, "Hey, just to let you know, and I'm sorry if I'm overstepping here, but we overheard that you guys were arguing, and we know about what you were talking about, but can I take you somewhere and we can, do you trust me?" And so he takes
Well,
him.
back to that hunting thing though, there's something that Patty says that I thought was pretty good foreshadowing, as he mentions like it's okay that you can't take the shot. For me, it's the thrill of the hunt, not necessarily the kill. It's the getting the fox in my scope, in my sights. That's what's exciting to me is like knowing that I'm in control and that I can make the decisions and stuff like that. And I feel like that's just spot on for his character.
Yeah. And yeah, that does, we'll talk about later, how that plays out for Ben. Um, so Ben trusts him. They go somewhere, and basically it's a big open field area. I don't think it's a lighthouse, but there's a building right there. Um, and they just scream. It's like, "Hey, you got all this built up inside. Just yell, just scream it out to the world, and you'll feel better," kind of a thing. And they both, share that moment together where they just scream.
You
Uh,
think that's also kind of foreshadowing of you can scream all you want, nobody will hear you?
I definitely didn't think about that, but interesting for sure. The moms are with the kids, and the boy decides to play football with the girl, and he throws the ball, as if he doesn't really know what he's doing. And
I think before that we had the Cotton Eye Joe scene from the trailer too, which we don't really have to cover because everybody's seen it from the trailer, but
oh, I thought that was after, but
I think that was I think that was the same day as them coming back for the stuffed
I
animal.
I
was
think
pretty
I
soon after.
I think I got it here. So I think I remember. So what happens is the so he's throwing the ball and he throws it beyond. So like he throws like a crappy throw and then he way overthrows Agnes and it goes into the chicken pen. And when they go in there, he has already taken at this point some keys from his dad. His dad has passed out. Um, and they go into this little um barn building and there's some hay on the ground and he pushes it away and he unlocks the door and he pulls up this basically trap door and there's a whole bunch of stuff downstairs, okay? There's tons of phones, there's tons of wallets, there's a
Luggage.
ton, yeah, tons of luggage. And so it's like, what is going on here? Um, and so the boy takes a photo album out and he starts flipping through pages and is like showing, like he's pointing at different people in the photos. And eventually he points at himself and he's sticking his tongue out in the picture. Mind you, they said he has a, they said in the movie he was born with a short tongue. So that's why he can't speak very well. But in the picture, he's sticking his tongue out and he points to himself and he points to what would look to be a mom and dad that's not Patty and Sierra in the picture. And basically what
Oh, well, so for that same thing, he also points at the watch on his dad's arm because when they were playing hide and seek with the babysitter, when the parents were out to dinner, he was showing her a special watch. Like his dad had this drawer full of watches.
dad
And
being Patty.
right. And so he's pointing to the pictures, like basically insinuating like that watch you just saw in the drawer, that's my dad's watch. This is my dad, not Patty.
Right. And so the daughter is starting to be able to piece these things together of like there is something really bad going on here. And so Aunt has her take pictures with her phone of these, different pictures in this photo album and so that she can show to her parents later. So they put everything back, they clean it up, they, lock the trap door, put the hay back on there, and then they go back up. And I think this is when they have that meal because they do their little thing and
Well, him bringing the keys back, I know it's a small detail, but that was one of the times that like my heart was pounding out of my chest because he had stolen the keys from what we thought was his dad, right? From Patty's belt loop. So he's got to put it back on him, but he's woken up from his nap and the guy's asking for him to give him a hug, but he's got his hands behind his back because he's holding the keys, like he doesn't want Patty to see the keys, and so like he somehow manages to give him a hug without him seeing it. And it was so nerve-wracking. The tensions were so high because you really didn't want this kid to get caught.
right. Yeah, definitely lots of tension. Uh, so the girl wants to get her parents' attention, eventually wants to show these pictures. And so she goes off into the woods and takes a sharp plant and cuts herself in the leg so it looks like she's, having her first period. And so she comes over to the dinner table and was like saying to her mom, like, I need to go to the bathroom kind of a thing. And then the mom takes her inside and she shows her mom the pictures for the first time. And then after her mom realizes this stuff, she leaves and she goes back out to the dinner area or the picnic table. And her daughter has like a really bad anxiety issue. And the dad does a good job of helping her calm down. And so when Louise comes out of the house, she tells Ben like, "Hey, she's really freaking out. Can you go talk to her help her, and so they swap out, and she shows the dad what's going on, and I think they eventually all kind of reconvene back into the bathroom to try to calm Agnes down, quote unquote, calm Agnes down. Um, and this is when they decide, well, we'll just tell them that this really freaked you out and we need to go home. And so that's what their plan is, right?
At this point, I think that's when Patty notices that the hay was moved in the
Mhm.
barn, so he knows that somebody's been in there other than him. And this, along with one other example that I'm gonna jump to that happens later, or maybe it's when he is putting his watch away from that dinner or something. At some point, he goes to put his watch away and he notices that one of the watches had been moved just a little bit from when Aunt was showing the watches to Agnes. So it's these little things he's picking up on along the film. So it heightens that tension just a little bit more because he's starting to piece things together. So you've got the bad guys figuring things out, and then the good guys are figuring things out, and it's kind of just a rush of a race of who's going to figure out what first, who's going to
Yeah.
escape first or capture the other one first.
When is it gonna boil over and the tensions are gonna really pick up, right?
Yeah.
So they tell the family, hey, we need to go. She really wants to sleep in her own bed tonight, so we're gonna go. And so they pack up all their things and Patty, Sierra, and Aunt, walk them out, and they notice that the Tesla car has a flat tire because they ran over a nail, quote unquote. And so Patty has Ben go with him inside the shed to go get some tools to fix the car. And so after they fix the car, then they realize, oh, Agnes's stuffed animal toy is on top of one of the buildings. And so they go to get the
On a third story roof. Like they tried blaming it on Ant, like, oh, did you throw it up there? There's no way that kid could throw it up there. It is so high up. It's ridiculous.
especially with the football skills that we saw earlier, there's no way he threw it up there. Um, so they get that down. Again, we really feel the tension here, thinking what's gonna happen, right? And they let him get in the car, they take off, and because Ben, Luis, and Agnes know that something is going on with Aunt, like this is not his parents, they're trying to figure out a way where they can start to leave and take Aunt with them. And so they ask, hey, Aunt, can you go open the gate for us? And Patty says, hey, Aunt, you don't have to do that. And because he has a button, he can just push to open the gate. So it's like, dang. And so uh, the family goes to leave. They just get beyond the gate. Or no,
They didn't get
not
past
past
the
the
gate
gate.
yet.
Right before they're about to pass the gate, uh, Agnes sees Patty shove Aunt into the little pond that they have. Now,
Yep.
mind you, we saw earlier in the film that they all went swimming, like they jumped off of a ledge into a little lake, essentially, or pond. And we learned there that Ant doesn't swim well. Well, here, he does not either. And so they stop the car, and uh, Ben jumps into the pond to go save Ant. And what this boils down to is eventually, um, was it, did they knock him out? I don't remember.
Uh, so Ben is saving Ant from the pond.
Yep.
Patty and um Sierra take Luis and Agnes at gunpoint and bring everybody into the barn. So they didn't get past the gate. They're at gunpoint now. They're in the barn. Um, he's got Luis transferring like several $100,000 worth of money to him, to Patty and his wife or spouse or whoever she is. Because at this point we don't know. Um, we get a little bit of a power struggle, and our like main family is actually kind of winning. And so Sierra's asking, like, come on, I've been here, since I was Agnes's age. which kind of lines up with what we had heard earlier in the film about how they've been together for what was it,
17 years.
17 years? And so when they had said that way earlier in the film, Louise was kind of talking to herself of like, well, how old would she have been when they met? So that kind of lines up with her being there since she was Agnes's age. And it's these little callbacks to things that were earlier in the film that I think really takes this movie a step above a typical horror movie because there's so many little callbacks like that that like the watch. You saw him, the kid show the watch. You saw the watch in the picture. You saw Patty notice that his watch had moved. Like things just line up so well. Um there's nothing really left on the table. Like everything's done for a reason. But anyway, so we get they don't kill anybody yet. But we do get sorry, I'm terrible with these names, but we get Patty and Sierra stuck in that barn now, and our little family or new family with Aunt is trying to leave. And as they are trying to get to the gate in the car, that's when the chef, like the private chef from earlier, at least I think that's who it was, or was it the
Did
babysitter?
you say how they got out of everything?
No.
So, they're basically taken hostage, and earlier in like when the family was in the bathroom attending to Agnes, the mom, Louise, she found a knife.
Oh, she found a box cutter. That's right.
Right. And so when they were transferring the money and Patty was getting a syringe ready to basically make Agnes pass out, um, Luis pulls out that knife and stabs him right in the face and pushes the gun that Sierra has and tussles with her. And then they're able to get out and get away. And then that's where you're at.
Okay. Yeah. So, uh, another car comes up and is actually shooting a shotgun at them. So their windshield gets all shot, so they can't really see, and obviously they can't go forward. So in that other vehicle, I think it was the private chef. I think it was the chef and not the babysitter.
It was the chef. Yep.
Um, so we kind of learn he's in on this a little bit, and we learn later that he's like really hesitant. He just kind of wants the money and doesn't really want to dirty his hands, but it's too late because they already saw that he was shooting at them. But they barricade themselves in the house. They try to call 911 or what the European equivalent of that would be. I think it was like 999. But of course, then the phones go dead because by this point the chef has let out Patty and Sierra. So we've got three bad guys on the outside, plus our family on the inside, trying to figure out how do we get out of this house and this property and stuff. Can we make a run for it through the woods? What do we do? And at one point they've got this really strong alcohol there. So they try to make like a Molotov cocktail to set the barn on fire, hoping that the smoke would alert somebody that they need help. Um, but the dad is a horrible thrower with this, and
He
partially because he is being shot at with a gun, but partially because he's just a terrible thrower.
he botched it.
So he barely makes it out of the house with that thing, and it lands on Patty's car, and it doesn't even explode. It just kind of like rolls and then eventually catches the car on fire. So then there's one of the cars gone. Um, we I don't know how much of this to cover, but I know at one point she finds some drain cleaner that says it's got this really strong acid on it. So she's planning to use that, and eventually she uses that on Patty's face. So he's like covered in drain cleaner acid all over his eyes and everything. So he gets burned. Um,
So then Sierra has to go after them while he's cleaning himself. And at this point, they kill the chef because he finds them and he's tussling with Ben and he's trying to shove Ben's face into some broken glass. And Luis comes up and smacks him in the back of the head with a hammer, which kills him. and then they're trying to get out of the house via the window on the top floor. And so they're heading out the window and they set a little trap for Sierra because she takes off after them, where she thinks she has the family cornered, but Luis is up top and she smacks her upside the head with either a rock or a part of the roof. I don't remember what it was, but
It
it was
might
a
still be the same hammer that she knocked out the chef with, but we're kind of going through this whole cat and mouse game pretty fast, but it does take a fairly long time. There's a lot of suspense in here. And actually, one of the things that I forgot to mention earlier, uh, this is the only one-liner that I really remember, but I know there were more. But Patty had said earlier when the family was captured first of if you really loved your family, you would have just let me basically shove Ant into the pond and let him drown with his parents so he could be with his parents. So it's almost like insinuating that Ant's parents or their bodies were in the bottom of that pond, which he says it so like with such
nonchalant.
power, but yeah, nonchalant, but like with such power that like you got to take a second to realize like, holy crap, he's saying that Ant's parents are in that pond. Like they're not just missing, they're not prisoners, they're dead in that pond. And it's just like, whoa.
Right. Yeah. Um, so Sierra falls down the house and dies on impact on the ground. Um, Ben
That
decides,
knocks over the ladder.
yeah, so because they don't have a ladder, Ben decides to take one for the team and he gets him as far as he can stretch himself from the gutters and then lets go so that he can, fall down to the ground. Hurts his legs pretty bad, but it doesn't seem like there's anything really wrong with him, just that he's probably going to have a solid bruise the next day. Um,
Yeah, I guess that wasn't super realistic. I feel like his legs should have been misshapen.
yeah, with that being concrete, I feel like definitely would have had more going on there. But he picks up the ladder. They're able to come down, but then they get cornered by Patty. And the daughter had ran off, I suppose, because that's who he has. Um,
Well, they had told her to go to the car alone, which is silly, but
right.
that's what they told her.
So Patty has a gun to the daughter's head, and uh, the daughter had snuck that syringe that Patty was going to inject her with. And so she ends up stabbing him like in the leg and, injecting him with it. So he's like slowly fading into unconsciousness. He's awake, but he's getting a little sleepy. And so the boy shows up and the dad Ben, he has the gun that I forget who was holding it. I think it was Sierra or oh yeah, it was him. He was holding the gun, but Patty told him to put it down. Uh, he has the gun and he's about. It looks like he might shoot Patty, but again, this is kind of that callback to the hunting. Like it's not always about the kill; it's just about the hunt. Like it's about that back and forth chess game that they've been doing this whole time. And so the dad's like, we're not gonna do this. He goes to walk away. Me, I'm like, you just gonna let him live? And then we see the boy grab a rock. And I think this is in the preview, but you don't know what he's really doing. And he just bashes the heck out of Patty's face and kills him. Um, yeah, and then they take off and everything's good. It's a pretty abrupt ending, to say the least.
Yeah. This movie was wild, but the amount of charisma that Patty had, or James McAvoy, just the level of charisma, the weird like grins that he had, you can see in I think in Jeremy's background right now. Yeah, so it just maybe not so much there. There he just looks like he's smiling, but he has these weird, creepy smile moments of like come on, you're not really thinking of doing whatever it is you're thinking of doing, right? Like he makes you rethink all of your decisions. And I don't know, it's just the power struggle back and forth of who's gonna figure out what first, it's crazy. And there's so many surprise things that you just don't expect. Like with Ant using the rock to smash Patty in the face, like I wasn't expecting that. I know you said it was in the preview. I don't remember it from the preview, but like I don't know. It caught me off guard. The conversation about the toilet paper, that was really random and out of left field. The weird scene at dinner with her under the table doing whatever to him, or insinuating that she was doing whatever to him, sticking them with a bill, like the drain cleaner, and it just
The one
there are so
thing
many things in this that were just surprising to me. I really enjoyed the ride.
I don't remember if we like deliberately pointed this out. I mean, I know you said she was young and there was an age gap thing, but uh we believe that Sierra was the result of this happening before too. Like she was just like what they were doing with Agnes, where they were trying to essentially separate them and get rid of the parents so that Agnes had to rely on them now and be a part of their family. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, like how Patty got his wife because of how young she was. And he even said, because Sierra's dead, I need Agnes to take care of me. And so there's kind of
Hmm.
like that Stockholm syndrome too going on with Sierra because the whole movie, I believe that she like thoroughly loved him and would want to stick by his side, and they're just kind of, you know, out there together essentially. So yeah, I thought that was a cool thing, well, interesting thing to point out that, um, they weren't just high school sweethearts. It was him doing exactly what they're doing this whole movie. They did it to her too.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's basically the movie. It is a good one to go watch. I recommend it. And so, yeah, that's about all I got. We each gave it a 10, so highly recommend. If you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We try to do at least two of these a month. But lately we've been doing more because we've been seeing movies almost every single week. So check back here for our thoughts. Drops a like if you like the video and drops a comment letting us know if you saw the movie or if you are looking forward to seeing this movie. And then as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.